afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Jackson Reaction Podcast, live here on Facebook and on youtube.com/GPTV. I'm Gene Jackson, along with
Rose Jackson.
Rose Jackson, who's trying not to choke on her drink there.
My little hillbilly sippy cup, mason cup with a lid on it. It's the most greatest invention ever, I promise.
That's right. We got to make sure you have a lid on it when we put you near the computer equipment, because
no kidding,
things happen.
Oh, things happen. That's true. That's true.
Okay, so it looks like 3 o'clock on Saturdays is going to be the time we shoot for these things. I can't promise it's going to be that way every time, but for 2 consecutive weeks, here we are at about 3 o'clock on Saturday afternoon. And what kind of fun do you have lined up for us this week?
Well, this week we are going to be discussing my love, our mutual love of documentaries and docuseries. We're calling this one documentary, docuseries, and chill, because that's what we do when we watch them. I've been watching documentaries for years. I'm sure before me, you probably did as well. Maybe not as much as I do.
Yeah, on occasion.
Yeah, on occasion. I mean, you know me. I'm a nerd. I love the nature documentary series, Blue Planet, different ones like that. Those are the ones I always, if I'm sick, I feel bad, I stay at home, downtime, I'll put them on in the background, just watch, listen, let them go, and it relaxes me. It's totally awesome. But I wanted to kind of discuss some of the more mainstream ones that are the more popular ones that we've watched, kind of what our take is on them, and maybe introduce some people to some new ones maybe they haven't got to see, maybe they didn't know where to find these. Just kind of go over that aspect of it.
Exactly. And then perhaps in a future episode, we'll go back and discuss those as well, some of those as well, and people can chime in with their feedback if they check them out in the meantime.
Right.
So what we got lined up first here?
The first one is the Don't Fuck with Cats. And us being cat lovers and cat parents to cat fur babies, I'd heard when this first came out in I think it was 2019 when it came out, and everybody was just going on and on about, oh my God, you got to see this. But the cat abuse that the guy does in it is horrible, and it was. I mean, there's a couple of scenes me and you had to look away from, and anybody that loves animals would have to do so. I mean, it was shocking to me to find that basically this is one of Canada's most infamous murderers. It was Luca Magnotta, I think. Magnotta is how they said it.
Like yeah.
Anyway, this guy's like in his 20s or so, and he's not a bad looking dude. I think he done some modeling. I think he tried to be more than what he was. He took on this persona of he was like the next Matt Damon, or I think he had an obsession with Basic Instinct for some reason. Yeah. So it's like he kind of modeled his actions and his life off these movies, thinking he was going to make it big. And I think he had a lot of abuse in his background, which most people that do things to animals and people, that's the number one factor, is they're deranged. They come from a abusive family, either mother, father, both, lack of mother, father, have issues, whatever the case may be.
Right.
But this guy, in 2010, videos started surfacing of him abusing these cats and kittens. And I mean, he was doing just terrible things, like he fed one to a snake, I think we saw.
Yeah, he put one in one of those vacuum seal bags, where you shrink wrap things, or those packing bags, or whatever the case may be, where it just sucks all the oxygen out of there. And
Right. Well, in the videos, you couldn't see who done it. You could only see the hand of the guy doing this, like holding the cat or doing whatever. You seen his hand. You couldn't really tell who was doing it, and the username didn't go to these people just kept trying to find him. They were trying to find him so they could get him put away for this animal cruelty. And
yeah, when you say that, I mean we're talking random people on the internet are now banding together. There's Facebook groups forming and all this during this time period. Of course, obviously the authorities were looking for him as well, but like what you're referring to and what the documentary follows is just people who come to know each other over the internet through no other means than these Facebook groups with the sole intention of getting this guy locked up.
Yeah. Well, and the guy's downfall was he moved on from animals and actually killed a person in 2012. I think he killed a guy that he either had relations with or was rooming with at the time. Whatever, might have been a neighbor. I can't remember that great, but it was an engineering student from China that he actually dismembered. I mean, he didn't just kill the guy; he dismembered him and put him in a suitcase.
Yeah.
And so that made it a even bigger deal. And so, he fled the country. I think they ended up catching him in Europe or something. But they finally, after the diligent work of the people on the internet, they were able to catch this guy. And as that's a great thing that people can come together and they can catch somebody that does these kind of things, it's also a downfall with certain things such as the documentary we watched not too long ago, Disappearance at the Cecil Hotel. Because you've seen there where you've got these internet sleuths, you've got YouTube sleuths. They see this video of this woman go into this hotel and she's acting strange in the elevator. And all of a sudden it cuts. She goes out of the elevator. She comes back in. Then she's missing.
Yeah.
Nobody in the hotel can tell you that what happened to her, where she went. Her parents, she's like, she just disappeared off the face of the earth. And the Cecil Hotel is just famous for housing serial killers, murders. People got murdered there all through the 1920s to the current time. And it's like, it's not a very nice place. It's like a block up from Skid Row. Homeless people, transient people, drugs. It's a very shady, seedy place. And so the internet community decides they're going to be the police, and they try to figure out her disappearance or her murder, as they try to spin it. And to find out she actually was not murdered. I don't want to really give it away as to what happened, but
well, yeah, to not give it away, because it is an interesting series to watch, but
it really was. Yeah.
The point is, the internet all land on one particular guy. He's a death metal singer. Looks like he would be a murderer. Plays the part of a murderer, and they all decide it's him, and they crucify him online and basically ruin the guy's life.
Well, the guy was at the hotel a year prior to when she went missing. He posted videos at the hotel while he was there a year prior in his death metal makeup. And, he did some of his death metal lyrics in some of the videos. And some of them were to the degree of death and drowning and things of that sort. So that they just assumed, because this guy, A, looks like a psychopath, B, he's at the hotel, C, he does death metal lyrics, death, dismemberment, and drowning, apparently, that he's the killer. So they go on this witch hunt, and they crucify him online. They crucify him to the point that the Mexican authorities questioned him about it. The FBI actually questioned him about it, cleared him, but when he went back to his homeland of Mexico, he ended up losing all his subscriptions. He lost his, I think, contracts that he had for his music.
Yeah.
This dude, they basically took this dude down to nothing. And he I think resorted to drugs and alcohol, nearly killed himself, had to get checked in the mental facility. It's really sad how they brought this innocent guy's life down to nothing because, a couple of people go, well, you know what? He looks shady and he happened to be at that hotel. Instead of going and checking the facts and saying, okay, the guy was at the hotel the year prior, there's no way he could have done it. But instead, no, he had to be the killer. Now I'll jump on the bandwagon. Hey, fuck you, you're the one that killed her.
Well, as with most things, to this day, They were all quick to spread around everything they thought that proved he was the killer and spread it all over as if it were a fact that he was the killer. And then when he got cleared, when he actually got investigated by the FBI and was cleared by the FBI, nobody spread that around. You had to dig to find that out.
Oh, no, and nobody wants to go back and apologize and say, hey, sorry, guy, we're sorry we ruined your life. We're sorry you nearly killed yourself because we decided to take it upon ourselves and be the police and the FBI, Because
he was people were harassing him on a daily basis saying he should die and they're going to kill him. And, the guy was wanting to take his life, but also scared for his life. It's terrible. And that goes on more than you realize.
It does.
In this day and age. And so for every story like the first one where it was like, yeah, those people stepped up and they helped convict the killer, there's way more stories of these amateur investigators get online and get a harebrained theory that somebody's guilty and then ruin their lives in the process. And
as much as anyone else like true crime, and I'd like to think that I'm smart enough that I could figure out a crime scene, or you always want to look at datelines and different things like that and go, you know what, I could probably do that. It looks like I can figure out who killed. Oh yeah, he threw her down the stairs, and he had to be the one to do it. You all want to be the detective, and you want to crack the case, and you want to be the one that finds out the truth, because everything's a conspiracy. But sometimes that hurts the police that are trying to crack the case and catch the real people. And then sometimes that hurts people that are just innocent.
Well, that was another thing about the Cecil Hotel deal as well, where they were showing these clips of these people, because you got to. Ironic for us to say this, but we just put this out there for fun, and people can do with it what they will. But you have these YouTubers and bloggers that think that their opinion matters, and they're these very important people, and what they do is saving and changing lives. And so you had them on there talking about how, well, the police isn't giving us explanations for this and that. They're not showing us the reports. We don't know what they know and what they don't know. Well, it's none of your business. You're not, you know what I mean? Like, nobody owes you that. You are not owed any of that information. They act like they're part of the well, we should have access to all of that. And like you say, in the course of that, they screw up a lot of leads for investigators and, blow up a lot of things that could have helped solve cases a lot of times, but they're getting in the way. So it's a huge problem, in my opinion.
And in a lot of cases, I believe this day and time, it is a problem. Even before you had internet, you had documentaries that would, come up and basically, we've watched ones like Paradise Lost, which was the West Memphis 3. And that was something that happened back in like 96. And that was during a time where you had communities and cities that didn't have forensics. They didn't have a lot of, experience with a case of this graphic nature. These were three little kids that were tortured and killed, dismembered and mutilated. And the community just went crazy. These children were they were tucked out to the woods. It was satanic cannibalism, ritualism, whatever. And the 3 people, which were teenagers at the time, that were taken in as questioned and actually, put in prison as the killers.
Convicted eventually. Charged and then convicted.
Charged and convicted were teenagers. And, I just, like, even then, one of the mothers had said she figured the teens worshiped Satan just because they looked like freaks. They wore Metallica shirts. They listened to death metal. They were into Wicca. Just because they wore black and they were different people and outsiders of the community, they had to be the ones that killed these kids.
So this goes to prove another point. The last point was, people on the internet can go and wrongly accuse someone and basically convict somebody in the court of public opinion. and, ruin their lives. Well, this was back in the 90s. I remember this. I was in high school when all this went on, and, of course, lived in Mississippi, and we got the Memphis paper. And, I mean, all throughout the media, these guys were, they were convicted in the court of public opinion before they ever made it to trial. And it was pretty much painted as if there's no way it wasn't these guys. But, back then there was no internet. There was nothing like that. But, like you say, within the community, everybody's like, look at them. They're freaks. They've got the, Metallica shirts on, and they worship the devil apparently, and all this different stuff. And it was just a given that they were guilty. And then Damien Eccles, who's a teenager at the time, didn't do himself any favors in the interviews and the footage that they got of him. But, like I've told you before, when we've watched it and talked about it, I'm sure, and especially being, number one, when you're a kid, you don't understand the gravity of the situation anyway. But in your mind, you have to think, I know I didn't do this. Therefore, there's no evidence that I did this because I didn't do it. So there's no way I can be convicted. So all this hoopla, whatever, but in the end, I can't go to jail. I didn't do it. And then guess what? They convicted him, and there was no evidence. The only thing you could really call evidence is when they coerced a confession out of the one kid who was, obviously, slow to some degree.
Well, he had an IQ of 72.
Right.
So
not even some degree. I mean, it's.
I mean, he had an IQ of 72. They grilled him in interrogation for like 14 hours. Basically of the, you killed her. Just go on and tell us. You killed her. And he would look at him and go, I killed her. I mean.
Well, yeah, because he said, I want to leave. What do I have to do? And they go, well, you're not leaving here until you tell us that you went there, did this, and you killed her. And so after repetition of that for literally hours upon hours upon hours, he repeated it back to him. They had it on tape, and boom, there you go. And that's really all they had that could even, I mean, they couldn't put them there at the scene. There was nothing. There was absolutely nothing to convict these guys. And if you've never seen this documentary, there's 3 of them actually. We got Paradise Lost 1, and then you got 2 that's called Revelations, which comes out with some more details as you go along. And then 3, Purgatory, which kind of at that point comes back years later and kind of talks about the years they've spent in prison and all the different celebrity-led, things that were done to try to get the decision reversed and get them out of prison.
Well, if it wasn't for the filmmakers and Eddie Vedder and some of the members of Johnny Depp, some of the members of Metallica, I mean, they would still be there. I mean, and sadly, I mean, those three guys, they spent half their life in prison. Well, I think it was 15 years? 10, 15?
No, it was at least 15.
At least 15.
So
they went in at 16, they come out at 30.
So where I was going with that is, if you watch this, you can see 2 things. One, how people can be, convicted, and like I say, in the court of public opinion and wrongfully accused. And when the police has no one else to blame and they're on the hook, like, hey, little children got killed. People are scared. They want to know the monsters aren't still roaming around. We got to convict somebody. They can make it happen. The other thing you'll learn through this documentary series, as well as a lot of these, and I'm sure you're about to bring up another one here in a few moments, is even though it's a documentary documenting a true story of something that happened, or it's factual, you can look it up, it's still a movie. It's still a story they are telling. And so all these documentaries, you are seeing it through the eyes of the filmmaker, and you are hearing the version they want you to hear. And the reason I'm saying that is Paradise Lost, when you watch the first one, they are steering you towards one particular person that they think at the time is responsible. And when you get to 2, they've now kind of changed that opinion, and it's kind of moving in another direction. By 3, the first guy, he's completely innocent, and not only is he innocent, but he's now saying he believes the boys in prison are definitely innocent, never should have been there, even though he was calling for them to be murdered in the first one. So it's like that. Like you still have to, if you take a deep enough interest like we do, when you watch these things, you still need to go online and kind of do your own investigating just before you completely jump on board with stuff, because a lot of these, they're gonna steer you in the direction they want you to go, but it's not always 100% accurate. There's still more to the story in most cases.
A documentary is always meant for you to draw your own conclusion, and that's all you can do is draw your own conclusion. I mean, it's going to be to the viewpoint of whoever makes that documentary, whoever makes the docuseries. And if they want you to think that this person's the murderer or this one's the murderer, that's the way they're going to spin that. And that may not always be the case. And, you know, another one of a more current time, you can take Making a Murderer, which came out in 2015. It's the Stephen Avery, Brendan Dassey case.
Yeah.
And you know this as well as I do. We watched part one, and who was on board to say that he was innocent? I mean, I was PO'd after watching it.
Yeah.
I mean, I signed petitions. You've seen me post on Facebook about every other day. You know, it was just a blatant disregard of authority throughout the judicial system on this one. You know, they tampered with evidence. They just hated him. I felt like they hated him because he was in prison wrongfully for like 16 years before on a crime he didn't commit. And so he sued the state and got like, I think $400,000 as a settlement. And I kind of think they had it out for him the whole time. They just found this as an easy opportunity to, hey, let's get him back for this, you know?
Yeah, if you're one of the people who think that the justice system is infallible and justice is always served, watch the Paradise Law series. Watch Making a Murderer. Regardless of whether who you believe is guilty or innocent, my God, the amount of incompetence with those police departments and how the murder scenes and everything was handled alone will make you question if justice is ever or can ever be served in any case, because it's absurd some of the things that go on. But whether you think Avery is guilty or not, I mean, some of the shit they did, you don't know how he's still in jail. They should have had to overturn the decision just based on some of the dumbassery that went on in the investigation.
Just the stuff with Brendan alone. Like, Brendan is a 16-year-old kid who, like the guy in the West Memphis 3, has a very low IQ. Okay?
Yeah.
They sit and interrogate him for just as long, if not longer, than the guy in Paradise Lost. And he tells this just convoluted story on how they raped the woman, they killed her, they buried her, they set her on fire. They did. I mean, just craziness. And it's because these investigators are just pounding into him. You know, you guys did it. You know, you did it. Just say you did it.
And he wants to get out in time to watch WrestleMania, so
yes.
he'll cop to anything at that point.
I mean, it was sad. It was just so sad seeing them do him like that. And like, you know, come around to Making a Murderer 2, you know, it comes out and I'm like, okay, I'm going to watch it because I want to see what new evidence they got in this. Okay, he's got a new attorney. She's kick-ass. She's going to get him out, you know?
Yeah.
And kind of watching it, they spin it in the direction of he could have possibly done it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, holy shit. Like, you know, oh my God, am I in the wrong for trying to get this man freed? Like, now I'm like, oh my God, I could have got a murderer free. You know, like I could have been a part of that. But I'm not saying that he did or didn't do it. We don't know that. And I mean, only the people that truly are involved in it know who did what and what. I'm sure that some of the evidence that was in the first one wasn't presented until the second one, or it could be that not all the evidence was presented. You know, we don't know that as the public. There's things that the police, the FBI, the different agencies aren't going to release on these things to the public, and there's reasons for that. It's ongoing case trials.
And if you don't believe that creative editing and perspective can completely change a story, go on YouTube and watch the edited trailers where they make Silence of the Lambs look like a romantic comedy. They make Dumb and Dumber look like
a drama.
You can take some editing, some music, and a voiceover and make any story into anything you want it to be. So that's completely off subject, but it's fun. You should go look at it. If you haven't. But,
and I mean, in this day and time, what I'm saying is that basically you've got the internet. You've got a lot of sources to find things. You've got a lot of sources to find the right information. You also have a lot to find the wrong information. And I can see where there's tons of documentaries out there. It's like you can base your own view on it, come to your own conclusion. If you think he did it, he did it. If he didn't, he didn't. It's all speculation. But it doesn't, to me, it more or less opened my eyes to the corruption of the judicial systems. Like all it takes is for you to live in a backwoods town and you to be the oddball. And guess what? You could be the next one to be on Making a Murderer.
And, you made this analogy this morning. And I think this is we're not going to dig into this story because it's been told a million times, but I think it really goes along to the point that you're making here, or that we're making, is you take the most famous documentary of 2020, of course, The Tiger King from Netflix.
Mm-hmm.
If you take a look at that story, I mean, everybody watched it together and while they were in quarantine, and everybody had a good laugh, and everybody had the fun memes of that bitch Carol Baskin and all that kind of stuff. But if you take all the humor out of it and all the silliness of what's his name,
Joe Exotic,
and you just take the facts of that and you break that down, you can make 3 different documentaries. Number one, if you took 3 different documentary crews and gave them all the same footage and all the same facts, you kind of got the one from mostly Joe Exotic's perspective and the one that's on Netflix, Tiger King. But you can make a totally different one from Carol Baskin's perspective. Then you make a third one that's from neither one of them's perspective, just strictly the facts. And you would have 3 totally different documentaries, and you would come away from each one feeling completely different. If you take the facts of what happened, this guy made a murder plot against a woman who was trying to take away his tigers that he used to make a living. You can't defend that. He's not the hero in this. Yet when that documentary hit Netflix, within 2 weeks, there were petitions all over the place trying to get him pardoned. And there was actually legitimate questioning of whether Trump would pardon him on his very last day in office, which he didn't. And I'm sure he was advised not to.
I'm sure he was.
I mean,
he did take
strictly based on fact. Yeah, strictly based on fact. Nobody should have been pulling for him in that. But he's fun. He's goofy. It was entertaining, and that's what people look for. And I think people lose sight that was a real story. This wasn't a comedy. This was a real thing that happened, and he tried to get a woman murdered.
Like I said this morning when we were talking about it, not to go too much into it, but if you look at the real things that were brought to light that he did, like he wasn't a superhero, and he was no kind of good person. I mean, yeah, he's humorous, and it's some good comedy and good white trashery to watch. But I mean, he wasn't really in the right, and the things that he did, I hate it. He really should be in prison.
Now, did Carol Baskin have her husband murdered? Maybe, probably. Don't know. Does she treat those tigers much better than he treats his? Don't know. Probably not. Yeah. They're probably not much happier. But I'm just saying, bare minimum facts. He tried to have her murdered, not the other way around. So he really shouldn't have been the big hero that he was. But again, just the whole point to that, I'm not really saying judge anybody who's a fan of Joe Exotic or signed the petition. I'm just saying
I did.
Yeah, you wore a T-shirt. Yeah, don't say I'm knocking you because she wore a T-shirt with his face on it and signed the
I still
T-shirt.
have it. I still have it. I still wear it occasionally.
And was on the edge of her seat all day of Trump's last day in office.
Yes, I was. I was
Joe
like,
Exotic would,
he's gonna get it. He's gonna get it.
would walk and have a second season of Tiger King. But
yeah.
but anyway, point being is that's kind of one of the interesting factors of watching documentaries. And that's one reason you can watch multiple documentaries about the same thing, is depending on who makes them, what story they're trying to tell, and what perspective they're taking. They can be totally different movies. We've watched like one movie that come out about like that Firefest deal on Hulu, and now we see there's another one on Netflix. Don't know that we'll watch it because I don't really know how many. There's not like a positive side that anybody could put on that. Be like, okay, everybody's taking it out of proportion. It really wasn't that bad. No, those people got screwed beyond all recognition. So I don't know that we'll bother watching it, but there's always a flip side.
There's always a flip side. And I mean, and with a lot of these serial killer ones, you'll see like 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 different documentaries that it's either a friend of the family, it's a wife, a kid, a mother, father, it's them, there's several different turns to that, and you can watch all of them. It's still the same result. He killed 23 people and he ate half of them.
We're getting ready to watch a new one on Gacy, and it's not like we're thinking we're going to come out of it going, oh, Gacy, he was just misunderstood. It wasn't nothing like, it's going to be more of the same. Yeah. But it's still interesting to see what little extra insight. They say from his own words, well, where is this coming from? What have we not heard before? So
exactly,
you're going to watch it. It's not going to be anything groundbreaking, but it's going to be interesting at the very least, because you can't help, or maybe not everybody, but I, and certainly you, can't help but try to get some insight into how does this happen? What drives or allows a person to do the things that these types of people did? It's, maybe you can call that a morbid curiosity. It's not like you're going to solve it or fix it or anything, but it's just, and like you said, really, you've got an encyclopedia of serial killers, somewhere around here somewhere that we used to read.
Legitimately, I do. Yeah. It's this thick.
And like you say, the backstory on all of them is pretty much the same. It's
pretty much
screwed up parents. There's very few where it's like, he had a wonderful childhood. His parents were married, and they took him to, Sunday school every week and everything was great. It's usually a horror story that gets them there. So
it's either the parents, or it's a girlfriend, or it's a woman in their life that did them wrong. It's the male figure that beat them and raped them. It's psychological. It's all psychological.
They got molested by an uncle or some such. I mean,
exactly.
It's always something like that, and it's terrible, but it doesn't excuse what they did.
The thing of it is this is the real world, and I myself, I grew up. My parents taught me. My grandmother taught me. We don't live in a bubble. There's a world out there, and you got to learn what's out there, because if you don't, you're going to find out, and it's going to bite you, and it's going to bite you hard. So I took it upon myself to learn every bit of anything I could learn, where it makes me a more aware person. It makes me more understanding of what's out there, so I'm not so naive that I think, okay, well, I'm going to go walk out on the street at 3:00 in the morning and I'm all good. Right. I mean, the world's not as fantastic kittens and rainbows as some people like to think, Well,
it's true. And so we've in this particular episode, we've kind of focused on some true crime documentaries, but that's not all that you enjoy. What's some other documentaries you might can recommend that people check out? And like I said, we may come back and talk about them in a future episode.
Well, I mean, most of the ones I do kind of go to the side of the true crime, serial killer, documentary type stuff, but we watched that Class Action Park, which was interesting. That's on HBO.
Yes. Just very quickly, it was a place called Action Park up in New Jersey in the early 80s that was kind of, I guess it kind of led the way for new laws and restrictions for those types of plays, because it was basically the Wild West for the first few years, and people
People
died
got
and got
killed.
maimed and
Yeah.
horrifically disfigured and injured, and there's been a ton of lawsuits over the years and all that. But it's a very, very interesting documentary. Not only an interesting look at Action Park, but an interesting look at the 80s in general and how much different it was back then. You know, you're kind of on your own in some cases as a kid. You know, you go there, and if you decide you want to jump off the cliff into the water and you land on somebody, you know, it is what it is. Your parents weren't standing by, you know, telling you, don't do this, don't do that. So it's an interesting perspective just on 80s life as we both grew up in it. So I guess that's one of the reasons we enjoyed it, because we remember when it was like that. We didn't live in New Jersey, but, you know, we lived in the era of, you know, you left out in the morning and your parents didn't see you till you came home. And if they needed you in the middle of the day, they better hope they knew where you were, because there wasn't no cell phone to call you.
Nope.
But anyway.
All right. So some of the others we watched, and I'm just going to name these off, you know, because we don't want to go into too much detail to each one. But there's Mommy, Dead and Dearest. That's on HBO. That just...
I can say, just give a synopsis, plot synopsis. I mean, without going too far, but just kind of hook folks.
This one was, I can't remember the term for when the parents poison their children and make them think that they're sick.
Munchausen.
Munchausen.
I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, but that's
something like that. Anyway, but that's basically what happened in this case, and it's very sad how the mother did the daughter, and the daughter ended up killing the mother, and it's messed up. I mean, you really should watch this one if you can sometime. The Iceman tapes, I don't think you have a picture of those, but that's a guy that worked for the mafia. That was a hitman. And he killed several people during his time and in some very, very unique, just, oh my God, ways.
But much like BTK, he was a family man. He had a wife and children who had until the day...
He didn't do it. He didn't do it to the effect of a serial killer, though. He did it with the effect of, this is a hit for the mafia. I'm getting paid money.
No, this was his job. Daddy left out on Christmas morning one year because he got a call and he had to go to work, and that just happened to be killing somebody. But it's very interesting because the wife and kids had no clue until he got arrested. And
I mean, and this guy, you'd see pictures of him with the kids, and he was just looked so nice and friendly. And then he'd go out 2 days later and cap two guys in the head with a silencer, you know.
But they talk to him. It's interviews from prison, and he describes these murders
in detail,
just as a guy would talk about working on a car, building a house, plumbing. It's very matter of fact. There was never nothing personal involved. It was just, this is what they paid me to do. This is what I went and did. This is how I did it. And, you know, no emotion. Yeah. Iceman is dead on.
And Abducted in Plain Sight. That's on Netflix, and I'm just going to say I can't even describe it. I can just say, if my parents, let me just put it this way: if my parents had done me the way they done this poor child, I'd kill them. I would be in prison for killing my parents. So,
it's one of those where the first layer peels off, and you're like, "Oh, that's messed up," and then the next layer peels off, and you're like, "That's really messed up." And then about 3 or 4, layers peel back, you're like, what? How does this even? What?
How are these people not in prison?
These are real stories. That's what's crazy. This isn't the guy who wrote Twin Peaks come up with this. This is
no, it's legit. Evil Genius.
That one was that's another very interesting one too. It's on Netflix. If you haven't seen it, check it out. Not going to try to describe it. It's just
Look,
it's an interesting
all I'm going to say is some of the contraptions that they used on the people that they used in this game for this bank heist were very Jigsaw Saw-esque.
Yeah.
That's all I'm going to say.
And I don't know which came first, the cart or the horse. Like, I don't know if they were inspired by Saw or Saw was inspired by them, or it's just really coincidental.
I would say, date-wise, I'd say Saw was inspired by them.
Seems likely.
Yeah. Family Next Door, which is also a true crime. Typical next door family, husband, wife, kids, wife and kids go missing. You
And the
figure that out.
husband is doing everything he can to bring them home.
Yes.
Although it turns out they were about to get divorced.
Yeah, and he had another lady on the side.
Yeah. It's not an original story as far as why, but what he did, you got to watch it.
But to see such an outside seem like such a normal family that can possibly be these people that live next door to us, to know that somebody is capable of killing their wife and their children like that.
Well, that's one thing too.
Scary thought.
In these newer ones, because this is a more recent occurrence.
Yes.
There's a lot of footage of this guy, like from the day he called the cops over to report her missing,
to him having interviews with the cops.
Yeah, to be able to watch from the word go, him talking to the cops about them going missing and how upset he is and all this kind of stuff, and watching him throughout the process, you really see just how sick people are, because it's like they lie without batting an eye, And some of them you can see, like when you watch Dateline and stuff like that, you can see through and like, oh, that's bullshit. But,
yeah.
Yeah.
Let's see. Another one that you actually got to watch with me last night that I've watched a few times. If you ever want a couple of documentaries to get your mind off of the current times, the COVID or whatever you're going through, you want something that's just a fun, entertaining, peaceful, documentary to put on and watch, is Dancing with Birds. You have to admit that was cute.
Oh yeah, it was. It definitely was, and insightful. Like I didn't know a lot of that stuff about the way they built those nests, and a couple of them way they could imitate their prey or their predator rather. But yeah, it was fun, and Roxy loved it. Our one cat sat and watched every bit of it and was just enthralled from beginning to end. So she's never seen birds that color. So
exactly, and I think that along with that one, there's so many documentaries about the planet. I know a lot of times we get wrapped up in the things we do, work, life. We forget that there's a whole nother existence outside of the world of where we are. And this one, Night on Earth, shows the world through a night view. You see all creatures of, city life to country life to rainforest to ocean at night. And I loved it. It's just visually beautiful. Kind of sad to see some of the bigger, countries.
Is that the one that had all the monkeys and
Thailand? Thailand, yes.
Thailand, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then there's Our Planet. This one actually... It more goes into the conservative part. Like we need to learn conservation. Our planet is diminishing. Our oceans are diminishing. We're losing species of animals. Polar bears are going extinct. I mean, you don't understand how big of a problem this is going to be one day. You're going to wake up and your children they're not going to be able to see a live polar bear, a penguin. I mean, it's really sad. But it's insightful and it's informative. Yeah. Made You Look was one I enjoyed watching. It's about the art. As a matter of fact, it's about one of the largest art museums or art resellers in New York. There was a $72 million or $74 million art deal, one piece of art that was a fake that caused a lawsuit. And it's interesting the processes they go through to figure out what's fake, what's not. The fact that people could spend this amount of money on one single painting. Oh my God. I had to see it to see what it was. And when you see the piece of art that is in question, me as an art lover can look at it and appreciate it. Now, I can't say that I appreciate it in the realm of $72 million or $17 million, but I can appreciate it in the sense of it's a beautiful painting.
It's interesting. It makes you sick on some level when you see these rich people that will drop $17 million or 60 something $million on a piece of art to hang on their wall, and you think of what that amount of money would do for some people, or a large amount of people, it could be life changing and save some people's lives, and it's just a piece of art hanging on their wall. And in light of that, I don't feel sorry for the people that got screwed and
No,
and overpaid for the fake art.
I can't feel sorry for the people when they're sitting there complaining about losing $17 million on a piece of art, when there's people, living on park benches I see every day when I go to work,
Which that was different than the one we watched about the guy who made the fake for the religious to just debunk the
Mormons.
The Mormons.
Murder Among Mormons was very interesting. That went down in the 80s, and that's a whole conspiracy with the Mormon Church, the Latter-day Saints. Very interesting. It's
interesting to see how it happened, and to see the lengths the guy went to make these fake different artifacts from the religion.
Wow. And almost shattered the religion itself.
Yeah, almost destroyed the entire religion based on these things that he were presenting as facts, and they were things that he made. But boy, they were believable. He went to great lengths to make them that way.
Oh yeah, and especially one I love on Netflix. This is a starter documentary. It's Headspace Meditation, the Guide to Meditation. And a lot of people, they debunk meditation. They say, oh, that's a bunch of crap, breathe deep, clear your thoughts, whatever. It's really helped. It helps me. It really has helped me. I've been doing the Headspace meditation for probably, what would you say, a year and a half?
At least, because you were at your wit's end at your previous job and just stayed completely stressed out and miserable all the time. And you got the Headspace app, started doing the meditating, and it made a world of difference.
Oh, yeah.
It really did.
I mean, I think people take for granted what their mind can do, and you take for granted that you can make your mind better. A lot of people want to take and blame things. They want to blame, oh, it's my job, or it's my husband, it's my wife, it's my kids, it's my parents. It's because of this, because of that. Well, you can take control of that, and you can fix that. And that's one of the little things that helped me make more sense out of how to rationalize, my anger, my thoughts, feelings. I mean,
if you need an analogy for it, it's basically you. It's a app to help you reprogram your brain. It helps you reprogram how you process things in your brain. And that maybe that sounds complex, maybe that doesn't sound possible, but I was skeptical when she first started. When she said she's going to do it, I'm like, oh, okay, whatever. But I tried it a few times, and she told me about how it worked, and it makes sense. It helps you. All this stuff that clouds your mind and just wreaks chaos in your head, it allows you to compartmentalize it. It allows you to focus on one particular thing and shut all that out. It's kind of like once you tune it out, you're able to keep it tuned out, at least for a period of time.
Well, I mean, if nothing else, it helps you just decompress at the end of the day. A long day, you got all this stuff in your mind, and you can't turn it off. Maybe you don't know how to turn it off. And it just helps you turn it off where you can sleep, and then you start a new day.
Yeah. I mean, you used to go in there and do that when you get home from work, and then you do it before you go to bed, and you actually started sleeping, where you wasn't sleeping, or at least not restfully, not staying asleep. So, oh, yeah, I'm a big, having seen what it did for you, and I'm a big proponent of it. I think people should check it out.
Right. Well, I mean, as documentaries go, Netflix has the biggest source of documentaries. They do. And, I mean, they've got all kinds of different kinds. You've got murder, you've got art, you got environment, you have causes. I mean, HBO's got good ones. Showtime has a few. I hadn't really checked out many on Hulu, but we're seeing some start coming out on Peacock and the Paramount Plus app, which Paramount, if you remember, that's what we watched the true crime. I guess it's not a documentary, but it's like a reenactment of Waco. You remember when we watched Waco?
It was basically a made-for-TV movie, for lack of a better word. Of a reenactment of the Waco, and
it was really good.
We get on these kicks where we'll watch something or hear about something, and then just dig into it and watch. Like, we watched a whole bunch of stuff about Waco around that time. I don't know what kicked it off, and it may have been that show that kicked it off.
It was, because we
watched that show, and then we watched
Ridge
documentary and Ruby Ridge, and then like around that same time after we watched Waco, we went back and found the Jim Jones movie with Powers Booth and rewatched that.
And then we watched the whole the People's Temple documentary. And
just recently on HBO Max, we skimmed through the one about the Heaven's Gate.
Yes, it was
bunch, which
kind of boring.
Yeah, I don't highly recommend it, but I had very little knowledge of them.
Watch the first episode and the last episode.
Yeah, basing on those, I don't think there could have been much in the middle that would have made it more interesting. I just wanted to know, because all I knew about them was Nikes and a spaceship, and that's the extent of what I knew about them. I kind of wanted to fill in some blanks, but once you filled in the blanks,
I just thought it was extremely interesting to find that these weren't like low intelligent idiot people that just they seen a flyer and said, "Ooh, aliens," and went and drunk Kool-Aid and killed themselves.
No, they were just really intelligent people that saw a flyer and went, "Ooh, aliens," and then lived it for 20 years and killed them.
Yeah,
that's the thing. It's not like they went to a weekend thing and where they drilled it in their head for a weekend, and then on a whim they all went and killed themselves. They joined up based on a big speech and probably a video presentation or something, like a timeshare, like one of these timeshare things. And then they spent the next 20-something years following these people.
Well, and that's the thing with people.
And then they all killed themselves.
Well, you take people of high intelligence, high IQ. I mean, these were people that were like all kinds of mathematicians, teachers, people with high PhDs, smart people, but either they have a lonely life, they're looking for something to fill the void. Religion is kind of out in left field for them. They need to find something to make them feel something. And all I can figure is this just made them feel something, just much like most cults. I mean, that's why people get into them. They get lured in with the sense of it's a family and it's something you don't have. And that it's this enlightenment of power and knowledge, and it turns out it's some guy that's going to lead you to kill yourself 20 years later. It just, never works out. I've not seen one cult that's worked out, just so you know.
That's true. They all end in that mass suicide thing,
or they get shot. So there you go. Yeah.
So, well, hopefully they ended up where they wanted to, but
maybe
it's another podcast for another day.
Yeah.
All right, so I think we've covered the topic of documentaries and docuseries pretty well today. Is there anything else you want to add before we wrap this one up? Because we've been almost an hour.
No, I think that's it. I mean, there's, like I said, there's so many that's out there now. You got so many outlets for them, so many streaming services you can see these on. And, I mean, out of all of them, Netflix for the price is the best one to me for that.
Yeah. So if you have any thoughts, comments, suggestions about the show, things you would like to hear us talk about in the future, things based on what you've heard us say you think we would enjoy and want us to check out,
maybe you got some new documentaries I can watch. That'd be great.
Email me at genejackson95@gmail.com, or you can contact either one of us through a private message here on Facebook. And if you want to hear the audio version, you can check it out at anchor.fm/Jackson Reaction Pod. We'll be sharing the links here on Facebook within the next 24 hours. And hopefully we'll be back next Saturday around the same time to do this again with another fun topic. And you'll just have to check us out next week to find out what that fun topic is. We don't tell it ahead of time most of the time.
No,
Not because we don't know, not because we don't figure it out 2 days before. Certainly
not because I don't have months of them wrote down for us. I mean,
that's right.
Yeah.
But also, if you enjoy podcasts, if you enjoy wrestling or wrestling podcast on Sunday nights live at 7 p.m. Central Time, you can join us here on Facebook for Cheap Heat TV Live with me and my co-host Charles Anders, who I'm surprised has not popped up in here with any smart ass comments. So obviously he's actually having to work today, or is doing something constructive. So
that, or you burned him so bad from the last one, he just didn't want to risk it.
That's true. Mm-hmm. So you can check out cheapheattvlive.com for everything to do with the Cheap Heat TV Live podcast. We also post links to this show, the Jackson Reaction Podcast, at that same website. So if you want to go back and find the past episodes, there's only been about 3 video episodes so far like this, but there's 22 audio podcasts from me and Rose Jackson from years past that you can check out as well. So thank you for watching, and we'll see you guys next week. Wow, thanks. This is awkward. It's froze up.